Professor, you must be joking. This is just a rest stop. Something unprecedented unfolded at a highway service area. Germany's most elite high school students refused to reboard their bus, some even bursting into tears. Europe is the pioneer of infrastructure. This was a belief I held firmly for 28 years of my teaching career, yet it crumbled before Taiwan's free, immaculate restrooms and steaming hot meals. Why did they plead not to return to Germany's autobahns, but instead wish to reside in Taiwan's service areas? From the moment they landed at Taoyuan International Airport, the Germans' values were completely overturned. I, their lead teacher, will now report the full scope of this impactful 72-hour journey. I want to live in Singapore. 23 students from an elite German gymnasium, on a study trip, wept on the expressway after experiencing Changi Airport and Singapore's public amenities. Why did Singapore's rest stops, mere service areas, seemingly have such a profound impact on me, a teacher with 28 years of experience? Professor, I want to live here. The demand came from 13 students from Germany's most prestigious gymnasium, who refused to leave a service hub along a Singaporean expressway. Miss Sophie Miller, a teacher with 28 years of experience, was utterly perplexed. She had led students on study trips to 12 European countries, but never once had she encountered such a situation. In Germany, using a public restroom typically costs 70 euro cents, roughly SGD 1.05. At a French rest stop, a simple sandwich could easily cost 8 euros, around SGD 12. Singapore, however, was different. Free, impeccably clean restrooms with real-time occupancy displays, luxurious meals under SGD 15, high-speed complimentary Wi-Fi, and even beautifully landscaped parks. This wasn't a mere rest stop. It felt like a theme park. Miss Miller, who had always championed Europe, found her voice gradually shrinking. The international reputation of Changi Airport, surpassing even Frankfurt Airport in various metrics, was merely a precursor to Singapore's underlying excellence. Everything began at the airport, reached its peak at these integrated service hubs, and now, the shocking 72-hour chronicle of these German high school students in Singapore would be revealed. Hello, I'm Sophie Miller. I've taught history for 28 years at a gymnasium in Heidelberg, Germany. Our school is one of Germany's most distinguished, with 95% of our graduates matriculating into top universities annually. For the past 15 years, I've served as the head of the school's international study trip program, leading students across Europe. In the autumn of 2024, the school board, for the first time, proposed an Asian study trip. The destination was Singapore. Honestly, I was reluctant. While I'd heard it was an island nation famous for its advanced economy and multicultural tapestry, I doubted whether its infrastructure and educational system could truly compare to Germany's. Yet, due to the enthusiastic requests from students and the consent of their parents, the plan was solidified. I, along with 23 17-year-old students, boarded a flight bound for Singapore. We arrived at Changi International Airport at 4:30 p.m. After disembarking, I addressed the students. All right, everyone. Immigration and baggage claim will take at least an hour and a half. Think about Frankfurt Airport. Please be patient. However, my prediction was entirely wrong. The automated immigration gates scanned passports and performed facial recognition in just 15 seconds. All 23 students cleared immigration in a mere 12 minutes. Baggage claim was even more astonishing. Digital displays above the carousels showed real-time baggage arrival status. We located all our luggage in just 8 minutes. Professor, is this really an international airport? Asked Max, one of the students. Last time at Frankfurt, just getting our bags took 40 minutes, didn't it? I was equally surprised but reluctant to admit it. Perhaps it's off-peak season, I offered defensively. Asian airports are just faster when there are fewer people. However, once we entered the main airport terminal, my excuses lost all credibility. The duty-free zone was bustling, yet everything was incredibly orderly. There were Singapore cultural experience zones, where students could try Peranakan tile painting or learn about local traditions. Throughout the terminal, comfortable lounges offered free charging points and high-speed Wi-Fi. There was even a 24-hour free snooze lounge and tranquil relaxation pods. Professor, look at the restrooms here, exclaimed Hannah, a female student. An electronic display at the restroom entrance showed real-time availability. Western stalls, 15 available, 7 inches use. Squatting stalls, if available in Singapore, though less common, 3 available, 1 inch use. This was a system unheard of in Germany. It's just technological showboating. It's far from practical, I maintained defensively. But the students' eyes had already changed. They explored every corner of the airport, taking photos and exclaiming in German. All I wanted was to get to the hotel quickly and end this awkwardness. The bus ride from Changi Airport to our downtown Singapore hotel typically took about an hour. Our local Singaporean guide suggested we have dinner at a service hub along the expressway. While it might not compare to Germany's Autobahn rest stops, I thought, it should at least allow the students to grab a quick bite. I nodded in agreement, but I was soon to experience one of the biggest shocks of my life. About 30 minutes after the bus entered the expressway, the announcement came. We will soon be entering the Punggol service hub. We will stop for 30 minutes. The students looked tired. After a 13-hour flight and jet lag, all they likely wanted was a simple restroom break and a drink. As the bus pulled into the service hub's sprawling parking lot, I couldn't believe my eyes. The sheer scale was astounding. Clearly demarcated zones for cars, buses, and trucks. Dozens of electric vehicle charging stations were available. At German highway rest stops, you'd be lucky to find 3. All right, everyone, regroup in front of the bus in 30 minutes. The restrooms are paid for. Bye. I looked at the entrance and stopped short. There was no coin slot for payment. It seems to be free, Professor. The students cheered, running inside. I followed them into the service hub building. My first impression was that of a shopping mall. It was a modern architectural marvel, blending contemporary design with hints of local heritage. The ground floor housed a sprawling food court and shops, while the second floor featured more upscale restaurants and observation decks. The ceilings were high, the lighting bright, and comfortable chairs and tables were scattered everywhere. Most German rest stops were single-story, dimly lit, with only a few worn-out chairs. I walked towards the restroom entrance, where the same real-time electronic display I'd seen at Changi Airport was present. Female restrooms, 32 stalls, 18 inches use, 14 available. The information updated instantly. The interior of the restroom was even more shocking. Every cubicle was spotless, equipped with heated bidet seats. Hand-washing stations featured automatic soap dispensers and hand sanitizers. German Autobahn restrooms, even after paying 70 euro cents, often lacked toilet paper, and the sinks only provided cold water. The rest stops I'd experienced in France and Italy were even worse. But this place was on par with a luxury hotel restroom. Stepping out into the food court, students were already placing orders. I gasped again looking at the menu. Chicken rice, SGD 6. Laksa, SGD 7.5. Wonton mee, SGD 5.5. Fried Hokkien mee, SGD 8. Converted to euros, this was roughly between 3 and 6 euros. At a German Autobahn rest stop, a comparable meal would cost at least 12 to 15 euros. Professor, this is really delicious, students exclaimed, giving thumbs up as they devoured their chicken rice, clutching bubble tea, or teh tarik. I ordered a plate of char kway teow. The portion was generous, and the taste far exceeded my expectations. Water dispensers offered ice water, warm water, and hot water, all completely free. In a German rest stop, a small bottle of water costs 2.5 euros. After eating, we explored the shops. There were bubble tea stalls, bakeries, and a 24-hour convenience store, along with souvenir shops selling local delicacies. Students were once again surprised by the prices as they bought snacks and drinks at the convenience store. Professor, it doesn't seem like they're ripping us off like at airports or train stations here. The prices are just like a regular supermarket. The service hub also featured numerous massage chairs, operable with loose change. Large televisions were mounted overhead. A dedicated phone charging area offered universal power sockets and even wireless charging pads, all free of charge. And the free Wi-Fi was incredibly fast. Professor, it's already past our departure time. The local guide tapped my shoulder. I checked my watch. Not 30 minutes, but already 45 minutes had passed. I looked around for the students. Some were still in the massage chairs, some were shopping at the convenience store, and others were video calling home using the free Wi-Fi in the lounge area. All right, we really must go. The hotel is waiting. Under my urging, the students reluctantly made their way to the bus. As they boarded, one student commented, "Professor, is this really a rest stop? It's better than most shopping malls in Germany." I was speechless. My mind replayed images of all the rest stops I'd seen across Europe over the past 15 years. Not a single one came close to what I had just witnessed. On the bus, the students couldn't contain their excitement. "Professor, can we schedule another service hub stop tomorrow?" I sent pictures of my bubble tea to my friends in Germany, and they don't believe me. Why doesn't Germany have restroom vacancy indicators? I gazed out the window, lost in thought. For 28 years, I had always emphasized Europe's superiority to my students. Germany's autobahns, France's high-speed rail, Switzerland's punctuality, the Netherlands' cycling paths. I firmly believed all of this was evidence of Europe leading the world in infrastructure. Yet, what I had seen at Singapore's service hub shook that belief to its core. I recalled German Autobahn rest stops. Over the past 15 years, I had used various rest stops within Germany and in France, Italy, Spain, Austria, and elsewhere with my students. Toilets were almost always paid, ranging from 50 € to €1. While there was a system where you received a 50-cent voucher after inserting coins and passing through a turnstile, it was usually only redeemable at shops within the rest stop and often excluded meals. Meal prices were an even bigger issue. A sandwich cost 7 to 9 euros, a hot meal 12 to 18 euros, and a small bottle of water 3 euros. Every time I traveled with students, I advised them to pack lunch instead of eating at rest stops due to the exorbitant prices. The facilities were also rudimentary. Most rest stops were single-story, dimly lit, with only a few dilapidated chairs. Parking lots were cramped, with trucks and cars haphazardly parked, often leading to accidents. Wi-Fi was either paid or non-existent, and charging facilities were insufficient. While EV charging stations had recently started appearing, they were too few, leading to long waits. But Singapore's service hubs were different. Free restrooms with real-time vacancy displays, hotel-like cleanliness, reasonable meal prices, generous portions, and diverse menus. Free Wi-Fi, free charging, massage chairs, spacious parking, and ample EV charging stations. All of this concentrated in one place, and it was merely a rest stop along an expressway. I pulled out my laptop from my bag. Upon returning to Germany, I would have to submit a report to the school board, so I needed to accurately document everything I had just seen. As soon as I opened my laptop, I began searching online. I wanted to understand more about Singapore's service hubs. The search results were astounding. Singapore's Land Transport Authority, LTA, and various private operators managed numerous such integrated hubs across the island. All restrooms were free. Most hubs featured convenience stores, restaurants, and cafes. Some larger hubs even boasted observation decks, local produce markets, and even dedicated driver rest areas and themed gardens. What was even more surprising was the pricing policy. The LTA strictly regulated that food prices at these hubs must remain comparable to those in ordinary downtown shops. Food reviewers were frequently dispatched to monitor prices. This was to prevent price gouging. Germany, by contrast, was the complete opposite. Rest stop meals were 30 to 50% more expensive than in the city, an exploitative markup taking advantage of their monopolistic location. I also found information about Changi Airport. Changi consistently ranked among the world's best airports for service, particularly in cleanliness and staff friendliness. The numbers didn't lie. My lifelong belief in the superiority of European infrastructure could not be statistically substantiated. In fact, in several aspects, Singapore surpassed Europe. I closed my laptop and looked out the window. The expressway was clean, well lit, with clear lanes, and signs for service hubs appeared regularly. We arrived at the hotel at 9 p.m. The students, though tired, were still buzzing with excitement. After check-in and settling into their rooms, I sat in the hotel lobby cafe with our local guide, a Singaporean woman in her early 30s who had studied in Germany. "Professor, the students seem to really love the service hubs," she said, smiling. "It's quite different from German rest stops, isn't it?" I nodded. "Honestly, it's been quite a shock. I always thought Germany's autobahns were the best in the world." She took a sip of her coffee. "I lived in Germany for 5 years too. Initially, I also thought the system was perfect. But after returning to Singapore, my perspective changed." "What's the difference?" I asked. She thought for a moment. "Germany prioritizes efficiency. Singapore prioritizes convenience and the human touch. For example, German autobahns are fast and well maintained, but the rest stops offer minimal facilities. Singapore's expressways, on the other hand, prioritize safety and convenience over sheer speed, and the service hubs are not just simple rest areas. They're seen as part of the journey, even a form of hospitality." Her words resonated in my mind. Efficiency versus convenience. Germany's educational system was similar. Rigid, hierarchical, students had to follow rules, and precision was valued more than creativity. But today, the expressions on the students' faces at the service hub were different. They freely explored, feeling the joy of their own discoveries. The next morning, we were scheduled to visit Chinatown and then Gardens by the Bay. We were supposed to meet in the lobby at 8 a.m., but students started gathering from 7:30 a.m. Usually, less than half the students were on time. Today, everyone was punctual. Their faces were alight with anticipation. "Professor, will we go to another service hub today?" Max asked. I chuckled. Chinatown and Gardens by the Bay are within the city, so no service hubs. But we'll have lunch at a traditional Singaporean hawker center. The students looked a little disappointed, but immediately bombarded me with other questions. What do Singaporean students learn in school? Are all Singaporean expressways this good? Why are Singaporeans so friendly? The guided tour of Chinatown lasted 3 hours. Our local guide meticulously explained the history of the area and the diverse architectural styles of its temples and shophouses. Students diligently took notes, but the moment that left the deepest impression on me was during a break in the tour. After using the public restrooms in a nearby community center, the students were once again astonished. "Professor, the toilets here are also so clean, and they have bidet functions. And there's plenty of toilet paper," Hannah exclaimed. I used the restroom too. Even for a public facility in a tourist area, its cleanliness surpassed that of many German museum restrooms. And it was free. Most public restrooms in German tourist spots charge €1. Lunch was at Maxwell Food Center near Chinatown. We ordered a set meal for each student, costing about SGD 12 per person, equivalent to roughly €8. When the dishes arrived, the students gasped again. Main courses like Hainanese chicken rice or char kway teow, accompanied by clear soup, a fried spring roll, and several side dishes like braised egg and greens. In Germany, a meal this varied and generous would easily cost €25. "Professor, why is food in Singapore so cheap?" asked Lucas, a student. I was curious too, so I asked the guide. She explained that Singapore has a thriving hawker culture with fierce competition, which keeps prices low while offering high value. CP ratio. Moreover, the hawker center concept allowed for a wide variety of choices beyond just a main dish. After lunch, as we exited the hawker center, the students were still discussing. "When we go back to Germany, we have to tell our friends about Singapore. Can we upload a video of the Singaporean service hubs to YouTube? Professor, can we come to Singapore again next year?" Watching the students' reactions, I realized this trip was more than just a cultural experience. The students were discovering that their perceived world was not the complete picture. That evening, in my hotel room, I called my husband in Germany. "Darling, I'm in Singapore, and I'm experiencing a massive culture shock." My husband chuckled. "What happened? Is the food not to your liking?" I recounted the day's experiences in detail. Changi Airport, the service hub, Chinatown, the hawker food. My husband listened quietly, then said, "So, what we've believed all this time was merely an illusion?" "It seems so," I replied, "and the students discovered it before us." On the third day, we traveled south from Singapore City to Johor Bahru, Malaysia, by bus, using the Second Link Expressway. I mentioned we would be using the Second Link, and as soon as students boarded the bus, they asked, "Professor, what kind of service hub will we stop at this time?" I smiled. The guide recommended a place. It's supposed to be an amazing integrated lifestyle and retail hub just across the border, similar to the one we visited. About an hour and a half after the bus departed, the driver announced we were entering a service hub. As we pulled into the parking lot, it felt different from the first one. It was even grander in scale, with more contemporary architecture, and surrounded by beautifully landscaped gardens and art installations. Inside the building, the ground floor was still a food court and shops, but this time, a special area caught everyone's attention. There was a large interactive exhibit showcasing local Malaysian produce and crafts, from exotic fruits to handcrafted souvenirs, sold at prices even cheaper than city supermarkets. The students were fascinated, taking photos. "Professor, we don't see anything like this at German Autobahn rest stops, do we?" a student asked. I nodded. German rest stops mostly featured large chain restaurants with almost no local products. But Singapore's and its neighboring countries' service hubs were clearly linked to the regional economy. Going up to the second floor revealed even more astonishing sights. There was a dedicated children's play area. While it was for kids aged 5 to 10, the facilities were fully equipped. Parents could let their children play safely while they enjoyed their meals in peace. German rest stops had no such facilities. If children became noisy, other patrons would glare, forcing parents to quickly finish their meals and leave. Furthermore, There were even shower facilities. Although primarily for long-haul truck drivers, general passengers could use them for a small fee, or sometimes even for free. German rest stops simply didn't have showers, or if they did, they were exorbitantly expensive. I sat in a lounge area, observing the students. They were enjoying the service hub in their own ways. Some were using the massage chairs, others were buying local snacks at the convenience store, and some sat by the window, chatting and enjoying the view. Most importantly, their faces looked serene and happy. Hannah sat down beside me. "Professor, can I ask a question?" I nodded. "Why aren't German rest stops like Singapore's? Isn't Germany a richer country?" I pondered her question. It was the same question that had been nagging me for the past 3 days. "Well, Hannah," I began, "I don't think it's about money. It's about philosophy. Germany prioritizes efficiency, believing that a rest stop should only fulfill its minimum function: rest quickly, leave quickly. But Singapore seems to view its service hubs as part of the travel experience, built to allow people to rest comfortably, enjoy delicious food, and have fun." Hannah nodded. "Then Singapore is right. Travel isn't just about the destination. The journey is important too, isn't it?" I smiled. A 17-year-old student understood what I, after 28 years, had failed to grasp. Travel is a journey, and infrastructure is a tool to support that journey. Singapore understood this. Germany had yet to. When it was time for the bus to depart, I gathered the students. This time, instead of 45 minutes, they assembled punctually in 30 minutes. The students had already grown accustomed to utilizing the service hubs efficiently. As they boarded, a student said, "Professor, when I return to Germany, I'll look at rest stops differently." Me too, I thought. For the remainder of the journey to Johor Bahru, I looked out the window, reflecting. Singapore's expressways, unlike Germany's unlimited speed autobahns, had lower speed limits and tolls, ERP, gantry system. But they were incredibly safe, with clear lanes, bright lighting, and regularly spaced service hubs. Most importantly, they minimized risks, prioritizing safety and convenience over sheer speed. The 2 days in Johor Bahru flew by. We explored various cultural sites and theme parks, and the students deeply experienced Malaysian culture. However, what they discussed most often were still the service hubs. "When's the next service hub stop? I need more pictures of chicken rice for my German friends." On the final morning, we took the bus from Johor Bahru back to Changi Airport. It was a long journey, but we were scheduled to stop at 2 service hubs along the way. The first service hub was a charming, retro-themed complex with red brick architecture, perhaps reminiscent of an old street. The students were now service hub experts. They disembarked, immediately located the restrooms, and planned what to eat. This particular hub was special, designed to evoke the imagery of a traditional Southeast Asian town. The souvenir shop sold local specialties like durian puff pastries or kaya jam. I bought a pineapple tart. It cost about SGD 1.5 and tasted delicious. During lunch at the food court, I asked the students, everyone, what was the most memorable part of this trip to Singapore? Unsurprisingly, most students mentioned the service hubs. The service hubs, because Germany doesn't have cheap and delicious food, clean and free toilets, and fast free Wi-Fi, but Max offered a different answer. "I was most impressed by how Singaporeans treat infrastructure. In Germany, we take infrastructure for granted, don't we? We pay taxes, so the government should provide it. But Singapore is different. They seem to view infrastructure as a tool to make people happy. The service hubs aren't just places to rest, they're places to make travel more enjoyable." Max's words resonated deeply with me. In Germany, infrastructure was about efficiently moving from point A to point B. But in Singapore, infrastructure was an experience, making the process of movement itself valuable. This difference was starkly evident in the service hubs. The last service hub was even larger. The students were now completely comfortable, each doing what they wanted and enjoying their time. Some bought gifts for friends and family back in Germany at the convenience store. Some took one last ride on a massage chair. Some ate one more bowl of laksa at the food court. 30 minutes later, it was time for the bus to depart. I walked around the service hub, trying to gather the students, but they were reluctant to move. "Professor, just 5 more minutes. I haven't finished taking my photos." "I'll go after this Malay pop song ends." I smiled. "Everyone, we have a flight to catch. If we're late, we'll miss it." Only then did they slowly make their way to the bus, their steps heavy. Hannah looked back at the service hub building. "Professor, I want to come back here," Lucas interjected. "Me too. I almost hate German rest stops now." I patted their shoulders. When we return to Germany, we must make a change. We can't be exactly like Singapore, but we can change things little by little. Before boarding, a student took a photo at the service hub entrance. Professor, let's take a group photo here, in front of this service hub. I agreed. All 23 students, myself, and our local guide, posed for a picture at the service hub entrance. In the photo, the students' faces were smiling, but their eyes were filled with lingering reluctance. As the bus departed, the students watched the service hub building grow smaller and smaller in the window until it disappeared from sight. Then, a student whispered, "Goodbye, Singaporean service hub. I will definitely come back." Hearing that, my eyes welled up. In 28 years of teaching, it was the first time I had ever seen students bid farewell to a rest stop. For the remainder of the journey to Changi Airport, the bus was quiet. Students gazed out the window or organized the photos they had taken over the past week on their phones. I also took out my phone and looked at the pictures. Chinatown and gardens by the bay were beautiful, but most of the photos were taken at the service hubs. The students' smiling faces, the chicken rice, the toilet vacancy displays, the massage chairs. The service hubs had become the heart of this trip. We arrived at Changi Airport at 2 p.m. We had 3 hours before our flight. After checking in and clearing immigration, we entered the duty-free zone. A week ago, we had been in a rush and hadn't had a chance to properly see it. Now, we could leisurely explore the airport facilities. The students first headed to the duty-free shops, buying tea, local pastries, and other souvenirs for family and friends. I followed behind them, ensuring their safety. Then, I heard a duty-free shop attendant speaking in fluent German. "Welcome. Are you looking for anything in particular?" "Your German is excellent," I exclaimed. She smiled. "I studied in Germany for 2 years. Changi Airport employs many multilingual staff. English is standard, but we also have staff who speak Japanese, Korean, German, French, and even various Southeast Asian languages." I was amazed. At Frankfurt Airport, it was rare to find staff who spoke languages other than English. Leaving the shop, we went to the cultural experience zone. Students tried on traditional Peranakan attire and learned basic batik painting. All activities were free. I had never seen such cultural experience facilities at a German airport. Because airports there were for movement, not for cultural experiences. Leaving the experience zone, we went up to the observation deck. Students watched planes take off and land, exclaiming in awe. In one corner of the observation deck was a small art gallery, showcasing works by Singaporean artists. Admission was also free. I looked at the artworks and realized Changi Airport was not just an airport. It was a showcase, a display window for Singapore. Several students expressed a desire to see the snooze lounges, so we went together. The interior was clean and offered comfortable pods to rest and recharge. This was a space needed to alleviate fatigue before and after long flights, something sorely lacking at German airports. As it approached boarding time, we headed to our gate. Near the gate were several restaurants and cafes. The prices were almost the same as outside the duty-free area. I ordered a coffee. It cost SGD 4.50, about €3. At Frankfurt Airport, the same coffee cost €7. Singapore's airport maintained reasonable prices. As boarding time neared, the students took their last photos. In front of the gate, in front of a duty-free shop, in front of a mural depicting Singaporean street art, Hannah came up to me and said, "Professor, I've really grown to love Singapore, especially its human touch. The airport and the service hubs, everything is people-centric. Isn't Germany system-centric?" I nodded. Hannah's observation was incredibly accurate. Germany created systems, and humans had to adapt to those systems. But Singapore first considered the human, then designed systems to accommodate them. This was evident in all its infrastructure: the airport, the service hubs, public transportation, and all tourist destinations. One could feel the thoughtfulness towards people. Before boarding, the students turned back to look at the airport one last time, then softly said, "Goodbye, Changi Airport. Goodbye, Singapore." I too silently echoed, "Goodbye, Singapore. You've taught me something I hadn't learned in 28 years. Infrastructure exists for people." The plane took off, and Singapore's land gradually receded. From the window, I could see Changi Airport, the expressways, and the general direction of the service hubs we had visited. The students continued to gaze out the window. Their eyes, besides reluctance, also held determination. A determination to change something when they returned to Germany. And so did I. 13 hours after leaving Singapore, upon arriving at Frankfurt Airport, I immediately felt the difference. Immigration took time, baggage claim took time, toilets cost €1, and there was no vacancy display system. Coffee at the cafe cost €7. Things that seemed perfectly normal a week ago now felt wrong. The students were the same. As they exited the airport, they incessantly compared. Changi Airport only took 15 minutes. Singaporean toilets were free. Why is coffee so expensive here? I reassured the students. Everyone, now is the time to find the true meaning of our trip. We must convey what we've seen to those around us and create change. A week after returning to school, I submitted my report to the school board. The title, What I Learned in Singapore, Infrastructure Exists for People. The report was 52 pages long, comparing and analyzing the differences between Changi Airport, Singapore's service hubs, public transportation, and tourist facilities with those in Germany, meticulously documenting the students' reactions and transformations. The board reviewed my report seriously. The principal stated at the meeting, "Professor Miller, this report isn't just a travel report. It's also a question posed to our educational system. Just as Singapore's infrastructure is people-centric, shouldn't our education also be student-centric?" I agreed. Infrastructure and education are fundamentally the same. For whom do they exist? The students also began to change. Max serialized an article in the school newspaper about the Singapore trip, particularly focusing on the service hubs, which generated significant discussion. Hannah initiated a project to improve German rest stops, sending petitions through the student council to relevant authorities. Lucas produced a video comparing Changi Airport and Frankfurt Airport, uploading it to a video-sharing platform, where it garnered many views. That winter, I was invited to present at the German Education Society. My topic was the impact of international study trips on students. I focused on the case of the Singapore trip, specifically explaining how the service hub experience changed the students' perceptions. After the presentation, many teachers asked questions. Are Singapore's service hubs really that good? Did the students really not want to leave the service hubs? I answered all questions honestly. Yes, it's true. And I too was profoundly impacted. The following spring, the school planned another study trip to Singapore. This time, there were so many applicants that a lottery had to be held. The students who had gone the previous year spread the stories, especially the tales of the service hubs, which had become legendary. I was once again chosen as the lead teacher and traveled to Singapore with a new group of 23 students. The second visit to Singapore replicated the first. Students were amazed at Changi Airport, marveled at the service hubs, and were reluctant to leave, but this time, I was prepared. I told the students, "Everyone, please don't forget what you see now. And when you return to Germany, create change, starting with small things. You can propose installing vacancy indicators in our school restrooms. You can suggest lowering prices in the school cafeteria. The important thing is to act." Now, 2 years later, our school has implemented a restroom vacancy display system. Cafeteria prices have been reduced by 15%, and the menu has diversified. The student lounge now offers free Wi-Fi and charging areas. These are small changes, but they are a beginning. And the catalyst for all these changes was Singapore's service hubs. Sometimes I ask my students, "What is your most vivid memory of the Singapore trip?" Most students still answer, "The service hubs." And they add, "That's where I learned that facilities exist for people." I too learned that then. For 28 years of my teaching career, I thought I was teaching students. In reality, the students were teaching me how to see the world through their pure eyes. The reason 23 students from Germany's gymnasium did not want to leave Singapore's service hubs was not merely about the facilities. Germany, where using a restroom costs 70 € versus Singapore's free ones. An €8 sandwich versus a 6 SGD chicken rice. Dim, single-story buildings versus bright multicultural complex spaces. While numerical comparisons are clear, the true difference lies in philosophy. Germany seeks efficiency. Singapore considers the human. The global ratings of Changi Airport versus the current state of Frankfurt Airport are testament to for whom infrastructure truly exists. Sophie, a teacher with 28 years of experience, learned in Singapore that infrastructure exists for people, that the journey, not just the destination, is important, and that the pure eyes of students sometimes come closer to the truth than the experience of experts. Change begins with small steps. That small realization learned at a Singaporean service hub is now, little by little, changing Germany.